nice to see you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay, got it. And I see some very familiar faces, so thank you for joining us. We have a really special guest today, so I really want to cut short the presentation, our announcement portion. But let me quickly touch on some things for you to record and keep in mind. So our next community meeting is slated for Saturday, 23rd July, 1 to 3 p.m. And we will send out notices about that soon. And our Olelo production, our next Olelo production, the community television program, is scheduled for 20 July. And we are working out our special guest for that show. But just to let you know that this past Wednesday, I did a farewell interview of Paula Allen, who will be leaving us and going to the Big Island, Hilo. So that was her second to the last show, but it was an interview of her, and we covered the whole gamut of her history with us. And interestingly, she produced about 90 shows with us, and I think that's quite an achievement. So when you get a chance, please thank her for all the hard work that she's done. And then our newsletter is I think out or will be coming out, and our April one will come out, and it will have some very interesting pieces as well. And for all those who are tuning into our program, our community meeting today, if you have something that you would like to write about and share with us in the newsletter, please contact
Melanie.
I'm getting over here.
Melanie.
Melanie, she would certainly like to talk to you about that. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Jenny, who will be nice enough to introduce our special guest, Michael. And we look forward to having a great session with you, Michael. So Jenny.
Okay, thank you very much. So introducing Michael Carroll to Mindful Hawaii. When Jimmy asked me to introduce Michael to the group today, I felt a little bit overwhelmed. Anybody who knows me knows I use a lot of words, and there's a lot that can be said about Michael. His experience as a student of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and how that shaped him as a young man, setting the course of his life. How he teaches mindfulness in a secular way, touching the root of the message, which has to do with living an authentic life, of finding a way to be free of the trappings of social convention, mistaken assumptions, and the tyranny of the inner dialogue. I could talk about how I love to listen to him talk about the Buddha as a regular guy, somebody we can relate to as a human being who did something we're also capable of doing. I could talk about Michael's career and his fondness for New York, where he worked on Wall Street and in the publishing industry as an executive at stellar firms like Shearson, Lehman, Amex, Simon & Schuster, and the Walt Disney Company. But we have invited Michael today to talk to us about the practice of mindfulness in everyday life and the way that Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche brought practices steeped in thousands of years of tradition. During two of his students in the 1970s, during a turbulent time in world history, when the Vietnam War, Watts riots, airport bombings, and civil rights movements combined to create an atmosphere of chaos, much like today's world, where we are challenged to keep moving forward in the face of political, social, environmental, and public health crises with no apparent end in sight. Michael is the author of Awake at Work, The Mindful Leader, Fearlessness at Work, and Mindful Leadership Training, and he consults with major corporations on bringing mindfulness into the workplace. He is a co-founder of the Wisdom Seat and is an authorized teacher in the Kagyu Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. He has taught mindfulness awareness meditation at numerous Fortune 500 companies, as well as Harvard Business School, Wharton, University of Sydney, Fundacho Dom Cabral, 1440 Multiversity, Omega Institute, and Kripalu. The Wisdom Seat generously shared the videos from their program, Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior, which we ran for our members from October of 2020, which they ran from October of 2020 to February of 2021. Mindful Hawaii ran it for our membership as a book study group from September of last year, just ending this May. It was the first of our planned member activities based on mindfulness training to develop and explore what it means to be a mindful warrior for the human spirit during times of chaos and change. In the training videos, numerous senior students of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche discussed and shared their years of experience practicing with these teachings and the importance of passing them on to others, like a recipe. The training of the mind through meditation and insight is a hands-on experience. It must be lived through the mind and body in order to produce the results. Just as we can only experience the sweet aroma of fresh baked bread if we dust off grandma's recipe card and get elbow deep in kneading the batter. As you can tell, I could talk about Michael all day. Despite being an extremely accomplished professional, a devoted and experienced spiritual teacher, and a darn good storyteller, he is also very grounded, warm, caring, and approachable. I am honored to introduce you to someone who has become my friend, Michael Carroll.
Very, very kind of you, Jenny. But that was a long one. That was a long one. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you, Jimmy, and all of you for inviting me to be here. It's a real honor. On the one hand, I kind of know kind of generally what we want to chat about. On the other hand, I don't, from my point of view, I'm very open to having a discussion. You've been studying this particular text, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. I've been very fortunate to have been trained in it by the author for many, many years. So if you want to have a discussion, or I can make some remarks about this notion of the warrior in the world. Anybody want to make a suggestion here, or any because I can talk, I can give a presentation here for sure, but is there any suggestions here?
I would say, Michael, looking around the room, most of the people in this room were not a part of the study group. So we were wanting to share a little bit about the study group with the larger audience. So I think that's kind of the perspective that we're talking from.
Got it. So let me just say a few things about this whole notion of Shambhala and the title of the book, Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior. First, this Shambhala, and many of you may be familiar with the kind of the westernization of Shangri-La. It's a very, very ancient story from Central Asia, probably almost over 3,000 years old, of a hidden kingdom in the midst of Central Asia, where the citizens who live in this hidden kingdom have become fully realized human beings. And the quality of their culture and the quality of their lives are marked by wisdom and kindness, dignity. There's also a lot in the legend of Shambhala about the culture of Shambhala, that the arts and technology and a wide variety of expressions of beauty and elegance is also a mark of this myth, this legend. This is a legend, right? This hidden kingdom. There are technically 3 strains of this legend as it unfolded technically. One is what is called the Kala Chakra. That is a particular tantric practice. Very elaborate. Anyone familiar with the Kala Chakra here? Anyone? A little bit? A couple of you? It's a very elaborate practice. I've been fortunate enough to have received transmission for it, but it's way over my pay grade. It's not something I've practiced, though I've read some of the commentaries. Very elaborate. And the Dalai Lama has done some transmissions around it. So there's that strain. There's another strain, and hopefully this is helpful. There's another strain of teachings around Shambhala called Olmo Lungring, which is an indigenous Bun tradition that speaks also to this hidden kingdom and has a variety of practices and legends and stories. And then there's the third stream, which is the one that I'm fortunate to be involved in, which came from Trungpa Rinpoche, which goes back to a king by the name of Gesar of Ling. And there's a whole body of teachings that come from that. So in any case, this is an elaborate tradition with various streams and strains. And they have different practices, etc. All 3 of them share many things, but one of the key is a prediction. That these 3 traditions predict that a day will come when the human race will degenerate into a level of confusion and cruelty that would be unmarked in the history of humanity. And it will be at that time when this kingdom will manifest certain resources to help humanity. Now, by the way, there's other stories like this, Atlantis, and there are stories like this in the Native American tradition. So that, there's no corner on the market here. I'm just telling you that this particular stream of teachings from Central Asia speak about a time when humanity becomes so profoundly confused that it's marked by a level of chaos and cruelty and madness that is so profound that it provokes Shambhala to come out and begin to provide some help to humanity. And according to the Tibetans, this is happening now. And according to several of the High Lamas, Karmapa, Dinko Khyentse Rinpoche, and others, that what Trungpa Rinpoche manifested was a fulfillment of this legend. Now, I'm not selling that, by the way, at all, but I'm just giving you some background on where these teachings come from, so to speak. So, in Trungpa Rinpoche's, in the Sacred Path of the Warrior in Shambhala, this particular strain, what this madness, this confusion is about is that humanity misunderstands poison to be medicine and gets itself caught in a certain type of confusion where it is chasing after preferred experiences rather than having the experience that we're having. So I'll say that again. The madness that is predicted in this particular stream of teachings is that humanity becomes confused about what is nourishing and invariably confuses poison for medicine. And the poison is the chasing after preferred experiences rather than having the one you're actually living. And the prediction was that it would get to a level of confusion where people would be living inside of all kinds of illusions. And for me personally, what we're seeing now, we're on the verge of it right now, is an artificiality of profound proportions. And you can see it in young people in terms of their relationship with digital worlds, in terms of the very simple things of just being on the little computer, but having digital relationships. And now we're getting into the metaverse where people are going to be living artificial lives rather than authentic lives. In any case, that's the context for why these particular body of teachings have come forward, is to provide some help at this time in a world that is increasingly becoming confused. So that's the context, and all the traditions share this prediction, and here we are in the midst of the result of that. So what's proposed is very straightforward, and I'll use the title of the book, if it's okay with you, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, to sort of outline it, and then we can have some discussion. The first is, Sacred Path of the Warrior, path, is what these teachings propose is that we need to make a journey, that we have to journey somewhere. But here, the irony of it is the way we do it in this particular body of teachings is sitting still. I assume everybody here, Jenny, has, because you're called Mindful Hawaii, I assume people do some form of mindfulness meditation. Is that a shared discipline here? Okay. So this is a core gesture in these teachings. Core gesture is this fundamental gesture of just being. Just being. Interestingly enough, in this particular body of teachings, the suggestion is that boredom is healthy, rather than constantly entertaining ourselves, chasing after preferred experiences. We're willing to just sit here, train our minds to become utterly familiar with the experience that we're having. A lot of the mainstreaming of mindfulness now is about, unfortunately, and I'm not blaming anyone, but we tend to do meditation to become a better version of ourselves. Less stressed out, more socially intelligent, more relaxed, less anxious, whatever, better immune system, all good stuff. I'm not putting that down, and if that happens, it's good. But that's not what the practice is about, particularly from this tradition's point of view. The practice is not about trying to become a better version of ourselves. It's about becoming utterly familiar with the actual experience that we're having. And it requires a certain discipline, as you all know, of sitting still, recognizing a thought, escorting the attention to the breath or the present moment, becoming utterly familiar with just being here, which, as you may or may not notice, is utterly boring in a certain sense, which is not bad news. This boredom off the cushion translates into power, into presence, into an ease and comfort of being who we are. So the first aspect of this Shambhala path is this gesture of training the mind. The next aspect of this, there's many aspects, but I'll just go through a couple here, a few. And I'm kind of speaking spontaneously, so hopefully this all makes sense. The second aspect of this path is deconstructing aggression. Deconstructing aggression. One of the things one notices is when you sit still, we get down on ourselves. You might notice you sit down, and I'm a very good meditator. And if you do extended sitting, it's like, my butt's too big. Why doesn't Bob return my call? Whatever. We begin to notice that we're very tough on ourselves. And over time, becoming familiar with this aggression toward ourselves, we begin to give ourselves a slight break, just a gentleness, a very gentle, not being so hard on ourselves. And it's very personal. It's very, for me, when I was a kid, started practicing when I was 22. I was always, why doesn't my girlfriend love me? She doesn't return my call. My girlfriends were always falling in love with my best friends. It's like, oh, I must be terrible. And it was so painful for me. But at some point, and I was on an intensive session, 30-day sit, I just said to myself, dude, lighten up. You're just sitting here. And it was like, for the first time, I was kind to myself. So this sense of gentleness begins to unfold in the practice very organically. And we begin to deconstruct our aggression against ourselves, which then we turn outward toward the world. So this, the path is about becoming really, really familiar with how aggression works and deconstructing it and opening unconditionally to the world. So this is a path of non-aggression. It's a path of gentleness. And it's very organic. This is not a moral choice. Hey, we ought to be gentle. Well, it's not bad if we said that, but this is an organic unfolding of natural gentleness that is the inherent quality of a human being. A couple other parts to the path. And this is one of the beauties, if one is interested in sort of advanced teachings, particularly tantric teachings, is all you need is your life. An ordinary life is sufficiently arranged for you to attain complete enlightenment. Now, in other traditions, you got to go to a monastery, or you got to live in a cave, or you got to do all kinds of, you change your life, leave your family, whatever. Here, in this journey, your ordinary life is the path. It is arranged perfectly for you to become awake. That's quite revolutionary, frankly. You can actually bring the most advanced teachings completely to fruition by driving a bus, or raising a child, or trying to make a dog that you're taking care of behave itself. That these dynamics are actually designed to wake us up. And that's part of the path, is understanding how that works. And in this particular tradition, there is a principle which we won't get into tonight, which is called drala. Drala is one of the key aspects to understanding how the circumstances of our lives are arranged in order to accelerate our wakefulness. And how do you work with those principles? There's a few others. Here, I'll give you one final one, but there's others, because this is a journey. For example, mistakes. When I went to study with my teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, he taught way up. He would bring us up into the forest of the Colorado Rockies, and we'd set up a camp culture there. I was a New Yorker, so I didn't know. It's like I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and everyone's setting their tent up. So I'd be like, I want to set my tent up over there underneath that tree and have my own special spot. It looks so idyllic. I really like the arrangement of it, the way the tent looked under the tree, you know? And people were like, dude, why is that guy over there? What's he doing? And sure enough, as soon as the rain came, I was right in the crevice, where the water came down the hill. I was right through the middle of my tent. And everyone's like, dude, could you come down here and put your tent in the right place? Yeah. But my point of telling the story is, in this journey, mistakes are your friend, they're not your enemy. That how we learn as human beings is one way, not the only way, obviously, but when we make a mistake, when we misunderstand, when we hurt someone or we get hurt by someone else, that's a further opportunity for us to learn and to become more awake, rather than keeping score with the world. So these teachings on the path, and there are many, on how does a warrior journey? How does a warrior journey? In this tradition, the fundamental gesture is the sitting meditation practice. And quite frankly, it's the encouragement is to do a lot of it, to sit a lot. The second, so we have a Shambhala, the sacred path of the warrior. So now we go to the warrior. Now, in I would say conventional white male American culture, the word warrior is misused a lot. It's used to depict a certain level of machoism, male dominance, kind of a false bravado of being a warrior. It also speaks to violence, harming others, aggression. So to some degree, it's understandable in modern world when someone hears the word warrior, it raises as many questions as clarifying. However, and I wouldn't be surprised that many of you who are of the indigenous nature of those beautiful islands down there understand that traditionally a warrior culture is a much deeper spiritual issue than the way it's been misinterpreted in modern materialistic world. In this tradition, it speaks to this ancient notion of what a warrior is. And in this case, it accents the accent is key, is absolutely key, which is the bravery to move beyond fear. The fundamental move is being able to move beyond fear. Generally speaking, the world is confused, and according to these teachings, the reason why there's so much cruelty and insanity in the world, because it's at the base, we're afraid of being alive. We're afraid. We're afraid of being human. And because of that, we live lives of cowards. We live cowardly lives. And this path is overcoming a cowardly mindset. Yeah, but since Jenny said I tell stories, I'll tell you a story that captures this sense of it. It's a true story. I love telling it. I think Jenny's heard it before, so apologize. So I like telling the story because it captures the essence of this quality of warrior. It has to do with a cat that lives in my neighborhood. He doesn't live here anymore. I haven't seen him in a long time. But many, many, many years ago, my wife and I, we had to walk down the driveway to get our mail. And we walked down there, go down the driveway, we get there. And on the mailbox is this picture of a cat. And his face is on, it's like this, it's like freaked out looking. It's a big puffy face. And it says underneath of it, "Hi, my name is Yankee. If you see me, I am lost. Call this number." And then we look down our street, and that picture is on every tree, every mailbox, every pole, is everywhere. So we're like, oh, okay. And we have a pretty big yard. It's 2 acres. We're like, all right, we cat lovers. If we see the cat, it's cool. We'll help out. So sure enough, in about half hour, we're looking out back, and there's Yankee. And he's like a big fat house cat kind of waddling in our backyard back toward our shed. So we go out there, we look underneath there, and there's Yankee. He's a big fat cat sitting under the shed. And we call the number, and car pulls up, and we look out the window, and there's a dad in the front. He's slumped over like this. There's a little girl in the middle bouncing. And there's a wife next to him with a little baby, a very young baby, maybe like, I don't know, 3 months old max. And she's going like this. And he's like, he gets out of the car and walks up, and he knocks on the door and says, "You have Yankee?" I said, yeah. He goes, "Thank God. It's been hell. It's been hell." They come in, and everybody's upset because dad let the cat out. They're moving, and they had him in a room, and the movers are coming in and out. Dad opened the door. The cat got out. The girl's upset. Mom's upset. So they're all happy where the cat is. So we all march out, get down on our knees, look under there with a flashlight. They all see Yankee, and they all start going, "Come here, little Yankee poo-poo. Come on, Yankee. Come on, mama." You know how we talk to the cats and stuff. And the cat won't move, just sits there. The little girl's like, "Come on, Yankee, we love you." And it won't move. And we're trying to get the stick, can't get it out. I mean, it's a big shed. It's just, you can't like pick the shed up. So the dad goes home, he comes back, and he has little toys. He has like a little mouse, fake mouse with catnip in it, with drugs in it. He throws it in there. Come on, come on. Cat won't move. He has a little friskies. He's throwing the friskies. Cat won't move. He has can. He goes like this. Come on, won't move. So he came back the next day and tried some things, but he wouldn't. But they had to go. They had to leave him because they were moving. And the little girl was so upset. So he became my neighbor. Now, why am I telling you this story? This is the fundamental move of the warrior. And to a great degree, this is the situation we find ourselves in, all of us here, is that just like Yankee was being invited to live an artificial life, to go back home, chase plastic mice filled with drugs, eat little friskies, grow fat, and have people go, "Oh, little Yankee poo-poo," to live a comfortable artificial life. But he had a choice to either live an artificial life or to be fully a cat. To be fully a cat. He didn't know particularly what was going on. He didn't, make sure the neighborhood was nice. And it's serious down there at 2 feet. There's raccoons and foxes and stuff going on down there. Skunks. But he chose to be fully a cat over living the comfort of an artificial life. And that requires fearlessness. That requires there's a fundamental gesture of fearlessness. And this is in many respects, the situation we're in modern society is we're being invited to live an artificial life endlessly. And it's heightened now. It's getting more and more heightened. I don't have to hunt for, I don't have to hunt for my meat. I don't have to show respect to the animal. I just go down to the refrigerator, go in and I say, hey, what do I want? You know, get a little meat. But you know, I don't really want to chew it. Can someone pre-digest it for me? You know, can you give me like a little burger? Like a little burger? Because I don't even want to chew it. But you know, I don't even want to cook it. Could someone just cook the pre-digested meat for me? You know, could you do that? You know. But you know, I don't even want to get out of my car. Could you just hand feed me pre-digested meat into my window of my car? Right? This artificial relationship with something's very sacred, taking the life of an animal. It's profound for a warrior. So this notion of warrior is essentially making the move to live an authentic life and have the courage to be fully human. Now, the interesting thing about this, how much time I'll just talk on and on. If it's not working out, just go like this. Just do that, or go like this or something. Jenny, how much time do we have here? Like, you're on mute.
Yeah, so we usually go until 3, but sometimes that gets to be 2 hours, can be very long on Zoom for people. So sometimes it's shorter or longer. We certainly could invite people to raise hands or
Okay. Yeah, so
put
3.
a question in the chat.
I'll get it done quicker than that. Okay.
And Michael, I think you could comfortably take another 20 minutes.
Okay.
That's how much you had, and then we can open it up for questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So here's the issue of this form of fearlessness, courage, bravery in this tradition. And it's true because it's just human. It's not just this tradition, it's fundamentally human. And the metaphor I would use, that I use to sort of capture the essence of this bravery, is the Olympics, ice skating. My wife was and Jenny's heard all these stories, of course, so I apologize. My wife was a gymnast, so she loves watching the gymnasts and the ice skating and all that kind of stuff. And for me, watching the ice skating particularly is unusually disturbing. Because, and everyone here knows, if you've watched it, you have these 2 beautiful young people, maybe 18 years old. They come out, they're dressed beautifully, they're on razor blades, skates on one of the most slippery surfaces known, and 54 million people are watching, and music starts, and they start, and at some point, as you all know, they go all the way to the one end of the thing, the ice skating rink, and they have to go backwards really fast. And they jump up and they have to do the triple Lutz or something. It's called something. And if they come down and they land, we're like, whoa. And if they fall, it's like even worse. Because it's like, there goes Bob, the guy who fell at the Olympics Smith, Why do I tell this story from the point of view of warrior? Those 2 young people, in doing this in front of 54 million people, are choosing to be completely vulnerable, completely exposed. And in this tradition, vulnerability is power. This willingness to be exposed to reality, to be exposed to others. Now, when we hear vulnerability, we tend to think of it as, a weakness, a situation that should be remedied, something that should be avoided or should be otherwise. But from the point of view of a warrior, vulnerability is power. It's not something to be avoided. In fact, if some of you may do martial arts, if you've ever met a great martial artist, she just comes in the room completely vulnerable, completely alert, completely not coming in kicky punchy, comes in completely sensitive to the situation, in tune, alive, open. And these young people who got on the skiff, they're not like, oh, I'm so scared, I'm going to be vulnerable, I don't like it. No, it's confidence. Confidence. So this quality of warriorship is about fearlessness, vulnerability, openness, the willingness to be utterly exposed to our world. Just like Yankee. Yankee made no deals, none. He was willing to be completely exposed, completely cat. In the same sense, warriorship demands us to be completely human. And by definition, it requires a level of bravery and openness and tenderness to the world. In this tradition, once one becomes familiar with this vulnerability, one discovers what is referred to as primordial confidence. All of this, by the way, everything that we're talking about here is available in the sitting meditation. So I'll give you an example. So we're talking about primordial confidence. So that sounds pretty good. I kind of like that. I could get a little of that stuff. But how does that happen? What is primordial confidence? Primordial confidence is not confidence in something, it's confidence as something. Now, as you're sitting meditation, if you just take a moment right now and just sit meditation, sit here for a minute. If you'll just do that, if you'll just sit quietly here for a minute. You'll notice there's a part of the mind that's going, okay, I'm sitting here quiet, what's going on? You might be going, okay, what's next? What's happening? Okay, I kind of like this talk. Whatever. What's next? Okay, good. I think, can we get on with this here? What's going on? Right. And we all know this in the meditation. There's a part of the mind that is constantly sort of questioning the situation. What's next? Oh, go out with my breath. That's right. Okay. When's the bell going to ring? Okay, good. Am I good at this? I don't even know if I'm good at this. However, when you examine who you are on the cushion as you're sitting there, you will notice that 99 9/10% of who you are is absolutely comfortable sitting here. Absolutely comfortable. Your hair is not arguing with itself. Your earlobe does not want to be a truck. Your fingernails, your teeth, you could just scan yourself. In fact, you could sit here for a long time, and the vast majority of who you are would be absolutely fine. No problem. There's only a very tiny part that keeps giving ourselves the impression that this isn't good enough. That big part of who we are that's absolutely fine being here. Absolutely, well, doesn't even question your hand. You see, is your hand having a problem being a hand? No, it's just being a hand. That is what we refer to as primordial confidence. There's something confident going on before we even question the situation. That's the confidence of a warrior. In becoming familiar with that, understanding how to embody it, opens us up to a sense of freedom. So I could go on and on. I only have like 12 more minutes, so I better get the rest of this out here. So we went over Shambhala, which is this tradition in Central Asia that has this legend of the possibility of an ideal human society. We talked about the sacred path of the warrior. We talked about the path. And that has to do with this practice of meditation, deconstructing our aggression, and really engaging our ordinary life as more than sufficient, utterly arranged for us to become fully realized. And then we talked about warrior as this quality of bravery, fearlessness, but not fearlessness, macho fearlessness. Has to do with gentleness, openness, vulnerability, and the courage to be utterly human. So that leaves the final word is sacred. Sacred. Normally, when we hear the word sacred, we think of something, solemn, like, that's very sacred. Be careful, watch out. And I grew up a Catholic, which I to this day am very honored that I did. I mean, there were problems, obviously, but to a great degree, I'm very honored in how I was trained and cared for by my parents and things. But in that realm, sacred is like, ooh, watch out. It's like, it's over there. I'm over here. It's over there. And there's some wisdom to that. I don't want to put that down. I apologize if it sounds that way. Here in Shambhala, in the warrior's journey, this is not that sense of pious or that something sacred is over there and I'm over here, and it's kind of overly solemn. In order to understand the sacred aspect of this warrior journey, one must examine what one takes for granted. And examine it carefully. So, for example, you're sitting somewhere and you have feet, and if you do, you're fortunate, because there are people who are disabled and they are not fortunate to have legs and feet, but I assume most of us have feet here. And there's like, yeah, they're feet. What's the problem? Well, if you take a moment and you look down at your feet, you can move them whenever you would like. I would encourage people to do that. Just look at your feet and just move your toes. You can just move them whenever you want. It's like this. Now we're like, okay. Well, hold on a second now. That's like that's kind of strange, don't you think? I mean, like, for example, it's hard to do this because you guys are on the screen. If we were in person, it's a little more fun to do this. But like, for example, how many people, like, can you be over there and over here at the same time? Is that possible? Is it anyone? I see a lot of this. It's impossible to be over there and over here at the same time, right? Pretty, right? Well, no, just look at your foot. Just move it. You're over there and you're over here at the same time. You're over there. You look, you can move it anytime you want. It moves. You move over there. You're over there and you're over here at the same time. Now, why am I doing this? If one actually begins to examine the situation carefully, you will notice that it's far more unknown than you think. it's far less what you would have assumed it is. And when one practices this meditation and one examines the situation carefully, one discovers that there's something vast and profound going on here. Vast and profound, timeless, and awake. It's referred to as sacred here, but this discovery of timeless wakefulness, profoundness, is core to this journey. This is what is referred to as becoming fully realized beings. You know, I love reading. Anybody a physicist here? Whenever there's a physicist in the room, I just hand it over to him or her and let them do the talking. But here's just think of this. The universe is 93 billion light years, 93 billion light years wide, and it's expanding. I mean, you know, we take it for granted. That's the context for this conversation. That's the context for this conversation. I hate to say it. So this practice of meditation and this willingness to deconstruct our aggression and this gentle opening to our world introduces us to an insight about who we are. You know, like Cynthia Evans. Cynthia, you're Cynthia Evans, right? Right? You'd bet money that you're Cynthia Evans, right? Like $100, right? Right? You're not Cynthia Evans. That's a word. It's a word that your mom and dad were kind enough to give you. So who are we? What is this? So this is where the sacred aspect of the journey comes in, where we examine very, very authentically, well, who are we? What is this? And we actually examine many of the dynamics that we've taken for granted. And in so doing, we glimpse our original nature, which is what is referred to in this tradition as basic goodness. Basic goodness. It's not basic goodness from the point of view of good versus bad. It's that this experience at its very, very core is fundamentally pure and wholesome. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt a lot. This is it. That's why we got to be fearless, because this does hurt being human. But when examined carefully and experienced directly, we discover that it is fundamentally pure and wholesome and vast. So these dynamics are just some of the sort of the core dynamics that are worked with in this particular warrior tradition. And by the way, there's other warrior traditions that do the same thing, like the Lakota. And I suspect there's probably traditions in Hawaii that have these dynamics as well. So one of the elements, and I'll close on this, one of the elements of Shambhala is that we don't have a market on this. Well, we're saying that there are sacred traditions that awaken our dignity, and that we should work together, and we should strengthen the sense of dignity and simplicity in our lives. And where we can find it in our own traditions, we should bring it alive. Whether you're Catholic or Lakota, Jewish, these traditions all have the strains of this wisdom. And Shambhala is how do we awaken it? So I don't know, hopefully this was a little helpful. what you were looking for. If not, if you were looking for a Pilates class or something, so I apologize. I didn't know that. So I guess we can have some discussion if you'd like. Go ahead, Helen. Do you have something to say? You have your hand.
That
I
was
have-
not
I have
a
a
raised
question.
hand, that was a clap.
Oh, that's a clap. Well, thank you, Helen, for the clap. That's very kind of you.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. You use the word aggression, but when I was thinking about myself personally, it comes down to more of worthiness.
Okay.
Okay. So in your work and your journey on this, how do you deal with, so when you think that you want to be connected to the universe and there's fear and scare of the unknown, right? It's like, well, I don't know what it's going to be like, but I don't know, because I don't know if I'm worthy of whatever it is.
Mhm.
So I think it's different from aggression, but maybe not. So I was curious about worthiness.
I think feeling unworthy is a form of aggression. Okay. And I see it in young people. Young teenagers who just don't feel good enough. Like, I can't hang out with my friends. I'll never get into the right school. My friends don't like me. My parents don't like me. I'm never good enough. And there's a sense of self-denial that they're not worthy of being human. That is definitely them inflicting a level of suffering on themselves. And, I'm taking it out of you because I see it, in particularly young people. And, the cultures like South Korea, they have high suicide rates because of this. Really high suicide rates, because if they don't get into the right school, they're not worthy. They're no good. So that level of misunderstanding, Cynthia, about how beautiful you are and how good you are and how rare you are. From the point of view of Shambhala, the human birth is so rare. I mean, they're trying to find even a bug somewhere on another planet. And the human birth, this experience that we're having that's awake, is so rare, so precious. So now, we're not saying, Cynthia, that feeling unworthy is aggression and therefore you suck for being aggressive towards yourself. What we're really saying is be kind to yourself. Of course you're worthy. Of course you're worthy. You're here. So this sense of kindness toward ourselves, which in Buddhism is referred to as maitri, metta. It's a gentleness toward ourselves. Of course you're worthy. So I don't know if that addressed what you were thinking.
Yes, but also the sense of describing, being connected to just allowing and being connected to the moment and the present and what's around you. This, when you don't know what you don't know, how do you know when you're connected?
Right. Well, it's kind of, I hear you. There's in Shambhala, there's what's called inner, outer, and secret teachings, which we could go into them here, but we don't have the time. And one of the aspects of the secret part of these teachings is that what you're looking for, that you're like, how do you know, right, is the most obvious thing that's going on right now. It's the most obvious. So you're going, well, what do you mean obvious? So the point is once you understand that, you'll go, Oh, boom. So you know when you know. You know, it's not like you don't know when you don't know when you know. Because it's the most obvious thing. Right? Go ahead, Dean. What do you have to say?
It's nice to see you, Michael. I haven't seen you in a long, long time.
I know you look real familiar.
Yeah,
Did we
you
do
look good. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I think it's Carmacholi in the
Yeah.
2000 someplace, way
Yeah.
back.
It's good to see you again. What's going
Yeah.
on?
Well, you look more like Santa Claus all the time, Michael.
Yeah, come on, man. I want to look like you. You look like a movie star. I don't want to look like Santa Claus.
Well, you look gorgeous, Michael. Anyway, thank you. It was a great presentation. I think one of the highlights was that the profundity of these teachings, you said you're pretty adamant and non-flinching about it, are based on a practice of sitting on our coles and allowing ourselves to be friendly with our own minds.
Yeah.
And secondly, he also, Trungpa Rinpoche, when he presented Shambhala through his particular, looking for the right word, lineage or karma, his insight into it, he really emphasized the arts.
Mhm. Yep.
So I thought I'd throw that back on you because I know you've been involved in the arts, and I thought I'd throw it back on you to give a little chat about what in Shambhala is called Dharma art,
Yeah.
and also to re-emphasize how what holds the community together is the mutual experience of sitting on one's butt and being committed to that, because then you have a ground for everybody to speak from.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass that back to you. Nice to see you. Oh, and good job on the wisdom seat. That was really fun to see you and Carolyn and Judy and the old crowd. And I think other than those discussions, I would almost like to go offline with you sometime.
Oh, no, please send me an email. I would love to connect. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'd be a lot. We have a lot to talk about. But
Yeah.
go ahead. There's teeing you up with Dharma arts.
Two things is let's go to the sitting, but I want to go back to the sitting practice here and why it's so important is this the gesture of being is something that is grown flabby. There's a tendency in the human mind to want to have another experience. You know, like, you want to have my glass of wine, what's the next television show? And being able to train the mind to stabilize in the present moment is the ground from which this whole thing happens. And the Trungpa Rinpoche emphasized it. And the beauty of it, here's the beauty of it. And I love doing this in business settings because I teach this in business settings a lot. This is all you have to do in order to become a fully realized human being. This is all you have to do. That's it. That's all. Zen has been teaching this for centuries. Mahamudra and the Atu tradition has been teaching this for centuries. That all you had to do to become a fully enlightened being is to just do this. In any case, back to the arts. There's so much to say about that because of the culture of Shambhala. Shambhala ultimately, this warrior culture ultimately finds its ground in the expression of beauty and elegance. The human beings are built to be elegant. It's our nature. So everybody here, you look at the shirts you have on and your furniture, and we all, if you're a little girl, you paint your fingernails. If you're a little boy, you want to have a special little bag or something. This quality of being elegant is the fruitional expression of a warrior culture. It's beauty. And Trungpa Rinpoche accented it quite a lot in terms of poetry, flower arranging, everything, forming arts. But it also requires a gesture of exposure, to be an artist. And I'm sure there are many artists here. You must expose yourself. You have to be vulnerable to be a great artist. So we were trained in, object arrangement, how to arrange your world, which I won't get into all this, but if you know how to arrange your world, you know how to do things elegantly, you provoke magic. Now, it's like not magic woo-woo, like rabbits out of a hat. But you begin to notice that the phenomenal world is alive, it's awake, it's not inanimate. And if you know how to create beauty, it provokes conversation with reality that is very profound. So the arts are, as Dean was saying, very key to this particular tradition. And I think if you look at any warrior tradition, beauty, elegance is a major part of it. So go ahead, Clark. You got some observations?
So I guess a big question in my mind is, how do we scale this up? I mean, this is a lot of people experience this as a big sacrifice to take time away from everything that's seducing them. And, as a practical matter, how do we scale this whole thing up? Is there a literature somewhere that you especially like that addresses that or talks about it?
Well, when you say scale it up, what do you, I heard two things there. One is people have a hard time getting away from what they prefer, what they like, to do this sitting meditation, if I heard you correctly. And then the other is how do we scale it up in terms of actually make it a movement, so to speak? Or what do you mean, Clark?
Yeah, how do we motivate people to sit quietly for long periods of time?
Well, I teach this in a lot of settings, in secular settings, in corporations. And I don't do it as much anymore because everybody's doing it now. But two issues here. One of the things I've noted is a lot of people get very excited about mindfulness in various kind of secular settings, and people end up inflicting mindfulness on people.
Right.
This is not, inflicting mindfulness on people is really not cool. Many companies hire me to do stuff, but I don't come in and go, okay, I'm going to inflict mindfulness on you. First, I come in and I go, what's going on with your life? What's going on? I do a lot of work in scientific settings, and there's lots of issues there. And if training the mind in a way, this way helps people have a more decent and dignified way of working with one another, we'll do it. If not, God bless. So first off, we don't inflict it on people.
Okay.
The other issue is people come to the mindfulness because, and I'll just talk about leadership here because I do a lot of work with leadership, is when you really get down to it, and you work with Wheatley. Margaret Wheatley will say probably a similar thing as I'm about to say. When you really get down to what a leader's doing, she's looking at very complex situations, decisions, lots of moving parts, having organizational agility, et cetera, et cetera. But what it really comes down to is the mind that has to make a decision and the confidence to engage uncertainty with skill. And invariably, they want to go, well, how do I do this? Well, first, you have to distinguish between a thought and an experience, for example. I remember this one, I'm sorry, I'm babbling a little bit here. This one person brought me out to lunch, is a female, it was either a reporter or an executive, I can't remember. And we're at Starbucks. And she says, so what, give me one example of something that we would get out of this meditation, And I said, well, you'd be able to distinguish between a thought and an experience. Said, well, what do you mean? I said, like, for example, you're sitting here and you think you're in Starbucks, right? You're drinking a cup of coffee, right? Yeah. I said, no, you're not. That's a thought. This is not Starbucks, that's a brand. And that's not coffee, it's an experience. Oh, well, for a leader to be able to de-bias her mind so that she's not laying a conceptual framework on what she is trying to understand in terms of making a tough decision, that's a key move. Well, this meditation de-biases the mind just like that. So my point to you, Clark, is you don't have to get people to do it. You just have to introduce them to their experience and they realize, I got to train my mind to be able to do this.
Okay, and I really fully appreciate that and get it. That it has to be an embodied experience. That's what motivates people to look at it.
Yeah.
Pursue it. But still, you've got to introduce the circumstances which will catalyze that embodied experience. And I'm assuming that there's a lot of skill involved in that.
Well, there is, but the circumstances that will catalyze a human need for training her mind or his mind to have an authentic experience versus an artificial experience is called life. It's called life. People are suffering. People are confused. We're confused. We're suffering. The circumstances of our lives shock us. We're frightened by our lives. Well, you can go to a therapist, you can have another beer. Plenty of things you can try. But here's another one. Try this. Try dropping a thought and escorting your attention to the present moment and doing that endlessly. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Helen, did you have one? I know I have to go. I think Mindful Hawaii, Marina, is trying to get me off the stage. So go ahead, Helen. What did you want to say?
Yeah. Hi, I'm here still. I just took my hand down before I forgot. I always find myself saying, I'm terrible at meditating. It's hard for me to meditate, but I also discover my experience of what you describe by engaging in mundane activities too, like washing dishes or making a bed or folding, that I'm not just sitting on my okole, because maybe I'm not someone who does that easily, but I feel present or presence in those moments of doing that are not the tasks, the dishes, but that it gives me this space to be. And so I'm trying to stop judging the form or the format of mindfulness.
Yeah. I hear you, and I think thank you for the question. The issue here is what I would call post-meditation, Helen, is in our ordinary life, there are countless opportunities for us to fully experience our world. It could be as simple as washing a dish or hugging our grandchild or seeing the sky. And our ability to be fully engaged, fully open, and fully touched by that is part of the fruition of this practice, part of the path, so to speak. However, one of the reasons why you and everybody else here, including myself, have a hard time meditating is because it's designed as a pressure cooker. Helen, this is all we're doing. But we're freaking out. That is of great importance. That is because that panic that makes us say, I can't sit here. That panic is the source of the confusion that is unfolding in the world. And making friends with it. And it's not easy. No one said this was easy. being a warrior. But making friends with that panic, opening to it, getting to know it is key. And I'll let a little cat out of the bag. Because Dean said I'm Santa Claus, I have to let things out of my bag sometimes. And I'm older, so I can do things that when I was younger, I'd get in trouble for. But let me just say this. Part of the frustration that people have with the meditation, with this style of what we call formless meditation, just sitting there, is the mind doesn't seem to want to behave itself. Right? It just keeps talking, just try to put my attention on my breath, but my mind, we come to the false understanding that the meditation is about quieting the mind. The practice is not about quieting the mind. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's not. The mistake we make is being fascinated with the display of the mind, this movement of the mind. What the practice is about is what notices it. What notices the movement of the mind is inherently still. And learning how to rest back into that it takes discipline. So I sort of just give you a little hint there about the practice, is that we're stabilizing the attention so that we notice what is noticing, not stilling the mind, okay? But I'm not here to take away, well, you shouldn't wash your dishes, you should sit meditation, God bless. If you do mindful dishwashing, that's a good thing.
Pretty good at that.
Me too. I love washing, cleaning kitchens. All right, so I guess we should end now, right? Or whatever you guys tell me to do, tell us to do. Richard?
Jimmy, do you want to ask any questions to Michael? I know that it was a group effort to develop this idea of Mindful Hawaii's Mindful Warrior Project. And as long as we've got a captive audience here, if there was anything that you wanted to pick his brains about, I'm sure he'd be happy to open to you in a vulnerable way.
I really don't have a specific question, but I think Michael has touched upon a lot of the key points or concerns that we have. And I think that's very good. I think one of the things that he cleared up was the stereotypical notion about the macho notion of warriorhood. And that's not what warrior means in this context.
Right.
And I think given what's happening in our country today, I think we need warriorship, not the macho kind, because you see them all over the place carrying the pistols and that kind of stuff. We don't need that. But what we need is this warriorship, the courage to see who we are as human beings and trying to become human, like the cat who understood the difference.
Yeah.
So I think that's really powerful, awakening words, if you ask me. And I think we need to continue to remember that.
Good.
Dennis, I think you had your hands up.
Mike, what was some of the influencing factors that got you involved into mindfulness and to alter your way of thinking? To go from the publishing business, for example, to being mindful is quite a big transition.
Well, it went the other
curious.
direction, Dennis. It went the other direction. My parents were very kind to me, and I was able to go to college and study theology and philosophy, and I pursued that when I moved to New York from college. Met some Tibetan teachers at at Columbia University, blah, blah, blah. And I was very keen in my 20s on studying theology. And I was accepted to a Buddhist seminary and went there and had to do a lot of preparation to get there. And I got there and I think I was 22, maybe. No, I wasn't 22. Let me see. I was 26 years old. I went to this Buddhist seminary. And at the end of the actual formal seminary, though there was a tremendous amount of practice and training you had to do after the seminary, I had an interview with my teacher that was there, Tibetan Lama, Trungpa Rinpoche. And I said to him, I said, you know, because I've been studying so hard and I have these degrees and stuff, I wanted to get his advice because I was quite an accomplished practitioner. You know, I was hanging out with tantric teachers, graduating from seminary, getting advanced missions. And I'm thinking, you know, I go up and say, hey, what should I be doing next? And I'm assuming you know, he's going to tell me, you know, become a monk or go study with this High Lama in Sikkim or whatever. And I'm all keen on him sort of giving me some really, you know, advanced things. So I tell him, you know, I've done all this stuff. And I said, what's your advice? And he looked over his glasses at me. He went, go get a job. And I was like, I was so arrogant, Dennis, that I thought to myself, he's probably mistaken me for someone like Dean. He's got me. He's got me. It's got. So I explained myself to him again, thinking he didn't understand who I was. And he just looked at me. He said to me, "You can do it. Give it a try." And it was pretty shocking to me. So I went back to New York and I was just a hippie. I didn't know what to do. And, but the long and the short of it, Dennis, is it you know, I got a job on Wall Street and, you know, I had pretty senior executive jobs over time. But what the key here is what I thought was like what I thought spirituality was about, what was sacred, blah, 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 was just my arrogance. What he was pointing out to me is that ordinary life was sacred. Getting a job, working with people, making a living, paying your bills, raising a child, being a colleague. That was a powerful teaching. And I'm very grateful to him for that. So it went the other direction. I wasn't an executive first and became a Buddhist. I was a Buddhist who was thrown out in the cold.
Richard.
You're on mute there, Richard.
Okay.
You're muted again there, Richard.
Mute myself.
There you go. We got you there.
Oh, okay, good. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This has been a lot of fun, and I have so many thoughts going through my head, but let me just see if I can focus here. I thought it was so profound. It seems like, oh, it's kind of like a throwaway line when you say to Cynthia, you're not Cynthia, I'm not Michael, I'm not Richard. But yet that is so profound, and it speaks to the concept of not self, where freedom lies. Or we could also say, took a note here, how'd you put it? The inherently still is not self. And it seems to me that we get ourselves in trouble by identifying with the conditioned self. So not self being not the conditioned self. And we say things, oh, like I'm a social worker, or we even with emotions, I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy. And we identify. And my question is, does Shambhala, or the path of the warrior, work with that explicitly, the Buddhist concept of not self?
Yeah, very much so. But here's a little, to see if I can do this. Let me see if I can pull this off. Okay, so the first discovery is that who we thought we were is far more, how would you say, unreliable than you would have thought, right? You just think of who you are right now, you know, Richard, Michael, you know, my parent, my past is gone. My parents are gone. My education's gone. You know, who I was is not who I am. So we begin to see that this is far more fluid. Our identity is far more fluid than we would have thought. Now that kind of insubstantiality of who we are, for certain Mahayana schools, Zen, et cetera, we get all excited about that. It's like, I'm not who I am. Ah, it's emptiness. It's great. But in this tradition, this discovery of sacredness reveals that the Richardness of who we are is vast. That's key. This dualistic relationship with a non-dual world, that is the most precious, vast experience of kind of cosmic exposure. So while you're not Richard, there sure is an experience of Richard. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's sacred. And at its core, it's what's referred to as enlightenment.
Yes. Are you familiar with Thomas Keating?
Oh yeah, sure. Hey, listen, I was a Catholic.
Right. I understand that.
You gotta be familiar with, yeah.
Well, when he died, there was a ceremony for him, and there was a video, a life surrendered to love, and there was a quote in there that I absolutely love, and it speaks to what you and I are talking about right now. I think the spiritual life is all about doing what we all have to do anyway, is death, but doing it sooner because it will enable our actions to be much more effective. And I take that death to be the death of the conditioned self.
Mm.
And then when we're not caught up with who we are, we're free. We're free to do more in life.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why fearlessness is the core gesture here. That's why warriorship is about fearlessness. We don't have to hesitate about being human. We don't have to hesitate about this intimacy that we're experiencing as Richard, Jenniness, Susanness. We don't have to hesitate. We can be fully open, fully exposed as this intimacy. And it's profound. It's beyond profound. It's unspeakably profound.
Yeah, and if I could share one other quote from a favorite of mine, Anthony DeMello. I assume you know who Anthony DeMello was.
The name kind of haunts me in the back of my head, but I have to say I'm not as familiar as I am with Keating. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, Tony Tony was a Jesuit priest from India, and he has the distinction of being the only person ever banned posthumously by the Catholic Church. But the nuns, exactly. The nuns in Rome, though, find a little known statement of the canon law of the Catholic Church that you can't ban somebody who can't defend himself. And Tony had been dead 11 years. So they had to lift the ban, but de jure, the ban is lifted. De facto, it's still in effect, even here on this island. But I bring him up because he really talked a lot about the not self, but he didn't use those words. He used the I and the me, but he said our greatest addiction is to approval. In whatever culture we're in, oh, be a good boy, be a good girl, oh, bad girl, bad boy. And he says, the next book I'm going to write, and he never got to write it, was I'm an ass, you're an ass, the final liberation.
Yeah, I'm smelling money in that title. I used to be in publishing. I'm smelling cash there. You need to write that.
Well, that was Tony's book to write. I'm in nobody training.
Good.
Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you very much.
If no one else has a comment, I have one thing that I would like
Dawn-
to,
Dawn-
and I see Dawn has her hand up, so I will wait.
Go ahead,
Please go ahead.
I was wondering if you could just elaborate on stabilizing the noticing in meditation.
Do you do this the mindfulness awareness meditation, Dawn?
I'm not sure what you mean by the mindfulness awareness, but I understand about about meditation and about breathing.
Okay. Do you do mindfulness meditation?
Yes.
Okay. So do you you notice a thought and escort your attention to the present moment?
Right.
Okay. And then how do you stabilize your attention in the present moment?
By going back to breathing and things. I think that that's what I don't quite get about the stabilizing the noticing, because I noticed the mind going off and then bringing it back. But I guess I kind of want to understand that.
Okay, I got it. So
I'll say, can I compare it to something else that I find that I actually can actually practice it maybe easier, is that I use music, like a song that I like or that touches my heart, and I try to have my heart interface that song or that music so I can be there and present.
Yeah.
But I guess I wanted to understand the noticing, because I never heard that before.
This is a very important point I'm going to make. This tradition of mindfulness awareness meditation is a very specific practice, and it has very specific instructions on how to work with the mind. Now, it's formless meditation, Dawn, in that there are, I'm trying to do this real quick. There's two types of meditation, essentially, and this is everything east of Persia. Two. One is called form-based. Form-based uses a bunch of techniques, all different types of techniques like Tai Chi or music or mantras or visualizations. And you do those techniques in order to achieve an objective. So you might listen to the music so that it opens your heart. You might do Tonglen so that you generate kindness. You might do Tai Chi to raise your Qi, your vital energies. And there's there's dozens and dozens of these form-based meditations. Mindfulness awareness meditation is a formless meditation. Formless meditation uses little or no technique and doesn't seek to achieve anything at all. Now, that lack of achievement is very frustrating for the mind, because it would rather have an easier experience, or it would rather have a more pleasant experience, or it would rather have extra cheese on its pizza, or it would rather have something else, a preferred experience, rather than the actual experience you're having. So formless meditation is about the actual experience you're having, and it's not seeking to achieve anything at all. Now, with that said, how the attention becomes stabilized, and one of the things you may notice when you do the meditation, particularly in the beginning, is your attention's everywhere. 1 minute it's here, and then I lose space, I can't stabilize on my breathing. Okay. at some point in the meditation, a shift occurs. You're sitting here, trying to stay, follow your breath, keep your line in your breathing. You're sitting here, and at some point, you notice that you're just sitting here. That's all you've ever been doing anyway. We're not meditating. We're just sitting here. Now, when you discover that you're just sitting here, you'll notice that what we refer to as being synchronized, that what appeared to be this very complicated project about my emotions and my thoughts and my body and my time and all this suddenly reveals itself as an undifferentiated immediacy of right now. And you notice that this is all that's been going on anyway. You're just sitting here. Boom. That's the shift from mindfulness to awareness, where there's presence. Now, by the way, this has been happening with or without your permission, without you noticing. But when you actually synchronize, you notice that what is noticing is stabilized. It's just there, sitting here. In order for that experience to occur, you have to practice. It's organic. It's like planting a seed and a flower happens. And using any technique, like listening to music or mantras or visualizations, or using any technique will distract you from that experience, will confuse the mind in having that experience. That's the straight dose on this form of formless meditation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Boy, you guys keep, what, go ahead. How do you say that? J9?
Janine.
That's
Janine.
Janine. Jesus, that's, should have been able to say that. It's a beautiful name. Go ahead.
I just want to simply, I'll just take a second to say how grateful I am for you to come in and present the summary of the Shambhala teachings at the end of the Wisdom Seat course. And I loved your teachings in the course, and you feel so thoroughly processed. You know, it's wonderful to hear you and embellish the teachings, and with your humor and relaxed nature and fun nature. So thank you so much for coming and teaching us today.
It's very kind of you. It's fun to be part of the team. And guess what? I'm coming to Hawaii with, yeah, my friend, his name is Steve McCurry. I don't know if you know, he's a photographer, and he took the photograph of the Afghani girl with the green eyes. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. He's a very good friend of mine. I grew up with him, and we traveled to Tibet and do stuff. And one of my friends is a teacher at that school where Obama went. What's the name of that school?
Punahou.
Yeah.
Punahou.
He's a professor there. Anyway, I put them together, and Steve's coming to do this exhibit at Punahou. And, and my wife and I and Steve and his wife are going, and we're going to be in Hawaii. I think 2024. So I might inflict myself on you guys when I come. And
sure, that'd be great. Look us up.
Well.
Yeah. Mahalo.
Michael, I just wanted to thank you for initially giving us permission to use the Wisdom Seats teaching to rerun the course.
Sure.
And thank you so much for this. This was awesome. And I guess I was going to ask a question, but I didn't want to put you on the spot. But I'll put you on the spot enough to ask if I can follow up and ask this question of you later. Now, Mindful Hawaii, you understand, is trying to support warriorship. And we are a collection of people with a variety of talents and skills, but we've never done that before in terms of building a container that we can invite our members to, and we can support them and each other together as we build our capacity to function as warriors in the world. And so we're very interested right now. We're in the process of figuring out what would that look like? What is it we offer? How do we create connection while building the strength of the community, both individually and collectively? So I don't know what you know of about how it's been done before. We are in touch with Margaret Wheatley's group about how she's doing training, but we're looking for some kind of organic version of this with the talent that we've got homegrown here, and perhaps sometimes bringing others in. How can we create something that we can support each other to be brave about being human? So I'd love to follow up with you if you might have some thoughts about what a group could do to create opportunities to support people on this path.
However I can be helpful, you know, I'm more than, whatever I can do, I will, it would be an honor and a joy. So you can just reach out. And
thank you. We will do that. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what might work, what has worked that you've seen, and what might we be able to do that we're capable of, but that would still be meaningful. So thank you so much. And thank you for this. It was wonderful.
Thank you for inviting me. So,
Michael, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Jimmy.
Oh, hey, Jimmy.
Hey, thank you very much. And I was so happy to hear that you'll be here in 2024.
Yeah.
And when you come, we would certainly like to do something with you in Hawaii.
No, it would be fun. I've never been to Hawaii, so I'm.
Oh yeah. We'll show you a good time.
Listen, I'm a New Yorker. Everything on the other side of the Hudson is this other thing over there. So, you know, so I'm, you know, I would not be
We'll
so.
certainly help you to experience the oneness of the world.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It would be an honor. So I'll let Jenny or whoever needs help out. Jenny is always for help.
If you don't mind, we'd like to put you on to our email list so you get at least to know what we're doing. You don't have to chime in. So Jenny, can you take care of that, please?
Yeah. No,
Got that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, thank you, Jenny. You're very kind to include me in your world. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Jenny, thank you for arranging this for us. This was awesome.
Yeah. So
Well, I learned about this Mindful Warrior training through Mindful Hawaii. Had been advertising this event, and it was during this very dark time. You know, we're still in a very dark time, but we've all adjusted to a lot of these pressures that we're under, but we don't know when they're going to stop. So when I heard that Mindful Hawaii had a goal to create a space to help strengthen people to be able to face reality. And I think that, you know, we sometimes make it very complicated. Well, how are we going to arrange it so that we can do that? And it's really coming down to a very simple thing that doesn't have a label to it at all, about being able to be present, learning to be present and experience what is actually happening to us. So I was very enthused by Mindful Hawaii's aspirations. I was very comforted by the Wisdom Seats program and continue to sit with them. They have a Tuesday meditation that's open. I've put some contact information for the Wisdom Seat in the chat. If you want me to explain how to save the chat, I can. Also, Michael's website for the Awake at Work.
Yeah, let's do some shameless marketing here. Let's do some shameless marketing. I will do one shameless marketing, if I may, Jenny. There's in Colorado, there's a place called the Drala Mountain Center. You may or may not be familiar with it. Some of you may or may not be familiar. I'm working with a monk there by the name of Loden Nima, and they've committed to a 2-week period in the middle of the summer next year, July, August. We don't have the dates yet, where we're going to do an intensive meditation program around some of the deeper elements of the meditation. And I just would invite people who want to, you know, steep themselves in this practice to consider, if not this one, there's others that you go to a place where you can practice 6-7 hours a day. I know that for some of you might sound like, what? But we're going to be doing one in next summer, and I'll be glad. Hopefully, we can get you the date and the time, and I would love to see your faces there and being bored in the middle of the Rocky Mountains together. So that's my shameless marketing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presence and your kindness. So,
Mahalo.
Thank you so much.
hello.
Great.
See you.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.
We'll see all of you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Aloha, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jimmy, Jenny, Marina.
Welcome.
Nice job, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Jimmy. Thank you.
Cynthia.
See you, Jimmy.
Oh, fine. I have some questions for you later.
Yeah, we need to talk. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Jimmy, I'll see you Wednesday. Huh?
Wednesday. Oh yeah. Who's that? Susan.
Yes. So you're with Susan. Yeah.
Oh, Marion. Yeah, of course. We have a meeting. It should be a good meeting, by the way. Good.
Okay. Okay. See you then.
Clark, take care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.